Content warnings for this episode include discussion of toxic masculinity, gender dysphoria, mental health, religion, and anti-trans bigotry.
Genderful would like to acknowledge the indigenous peoples and the unceded lands that the producers, hosts, and guests live and have dwelt upon. Today we honor the
Coast Salish,
Ojibwa and Dakota lands,
and Duwamish.
All right. We honor the elders, the human, plant, and animal ancestors of these lands, and celebrate the living descendants of these people. May all beings tend these lands for the goodness of the next 7 generations and beyond.
Meowdy folks, welcome to Genderful, a talk show interviewing gender diverse folks about their special interests.
The name of our show celebrates that gender expansiveness is wonderful.
Hi, I'm GenderMeowster, and my pronouns are they, them.
Hi, I'm Atlas O Phoenix, and my pronouns are also they, them. The focus of our show is to interview trans, non-binary, agender, and gender-diverse people regarding their special interests, passion projects, and resources for the gender-diverse community.
We want our audience to know that this show is hosted by 2 folks who also identify as non-binary, transmasculine, neurodivergent, and disabled, with a passion for telling trans stories.
If you're new to our show, welcome. We're delighted you're here.
At the end of this interview, we have Clouder Query, where we like to ask you a question related to this week's topic. We'd like to invite you, our listeners, to answer the Clouder Query on our social media platforms. This show is made possible by volunteers, tips, and subscriptions.
Shout out to those helping us coordinate guests, edit the podcast, moderate the live chat, and post on our socials.
If you would like to support the show with your time, please join our Discord server and meet the community and get a regular digest of Solidarity resources. If you'd like to catch us live, join us on Mondays at twitch.tv/GenderMeowster. Show notes will appear in the edited version of the show on Fridays on both YouTube and podcasting platforms.
If you love the show, check out some of our earlier episodes. We invite you to remember that we are whole people with robust lives, friendships, challenges, and successes. We love and are loved, and we are delighted to share these stories with you.
As always, we kindly remind our listeners that no person is a monolith of their identities. Your identities can change over time and are valid every step of the way. And if you think you're gender diverse, you are gender diverse. There are no social or medical prerequisites to be included in the community. So welcome to Genderful episode 74, everyone. This week, our guest is Mac Scotty McGregor, he, him pronouns, and we're going to be chatting about positive masculinity. So, Mac, my wife actually is the person who suggested you for the show, and you all go way back, it turns out.
Yes, it is a small world, right?
She says that she referred to you as an A-lister trans person. I don't know if you have heard that reflected to you before, but no. She was like, wait, what? Mac's on your show? She's in the chat right now. Indeed. And I remember seeing you at Trans Pride this year, marshaling all the security folks.
Yes, I was assisting as one of the co-security leads.
Yeah.
I've been involved in Trans Pride since it started, so.
Yeah. That's so wonderful. Yeah, she's been on the security team with them for at least 7 years. I don't know, a while. So it's such a pleasure to have you here. And then, of course, my co-host is Atlas.
Hello. Welcome
Hi.
to Genderful, Mac. Welcome. It's great to have you here. We had really fun banter, which made us put our hats on. So you were styling with shirts, glasses, hats. The party over here.
Yes.
Party.
All right. This is the closest thing to a hat I have in reaching distance.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
For those listening,
perfect.
I just put a sparkly rainbow masquerade mask on my forehead because I'm already wearing rainbow glasses.
Oh my God. That's what I knew they were rainbow glasses.
Yeah.
I have a purple pork pie hat. What do you have, Mac?
What do I have? Purple?
No,
What's
what
your hat?
kind of hat do you
For
have?
those listening later and can't see us.
Fedora, yeah, it's a fedora.
It's a rainbow fedora. It's like a quilted rainbow.
I think I got this in New Orleans. So.
That's a good hat.
That's a great hat. I love that sash. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, thanks for coming on today. And I think I'll pop up with the first question. Is that cool, Gender?
It sounds
All
great.
right.
Yeah.
All right. What might be the things that you can trace back to your youth that indicated that you might be gender diverse someday?
That started very young for me.
Okay.
I was born and raised in the Bible Belt. I've mostly recovered.
Okay. Glad to have you here.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to a Southern Baptist school growing up. And, so I had zero access to the LGBTQ community or influence, or I really didn't know anybody that was out until I was in my 20s.
Okay.
But I knew that the Southern Belle, Scarlett O'Hara type given name I had did not represent me at all. And at 4 and 5 years old, I started changing my name to a masculine name, playing with other kids. I was born in the 60s, so the word transgender wasn't even around yet. And of course, I had no exposure to the community, so I wouldn't have known it anyway, but that word had not even come around. So the only way as a little kid that I knew how to describe what I was feeling was by what I chose to wear and by telling kids a masculine name. And I came up with an interesting, funny name because my grandfather and I had a couple of TV shows we watched together every week. It was our thing. My mom had me at 16 and my grandparents helped raise me when I was young. So my grandfather and I used to watch Bonanza and Gunsmoke together, two Westerns, like all the time, religiously. That was our thing. And so I told the kids, and you all are probably, a little young for those shows unless you saw reruns on
I remember Bonanza. I remember it. Yes.
Right.
Fantastic show. Yes.
I told the kids my name was Matt Dillon, the sheriff on Gunsmoke. And I wore little 6-shooters and a little cowboy hat and the whole thing. And so, when you're born with an F in your first test of life, they put an F on that piece of paper that follows us around. It's okay. You can get away with being a tomboy as a little kid, even in the Bible Belt.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
My
Okay.
grandparents thought it was cute when kids would come knock on the door and ask if Matt Dillon could come out and play.
That explains the shirt that I saw in the suit that I saw on Instagram. That's stylish. That stylish thing started very young. Matt Dillon. Perfect. Perfect. Yes. Oh my goodness. How has your relationship to gender evolved over time?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Such a deep dive right into my journey. And just, one of the things about growing up in something like the Bible Belt, the gender roles were very defined.
Yeah.
They were, and they were small little boxes on each side of that binary that they wanted you to fit in. And so, of course, the older I got, the more I knew that I didn't fit what they were telling I was supposed to be, or how I was supposed to walk in the world according to them. And so, yeah, I did a lot of exploring. And then when I was 17, I did this thing. I started martial arts at 6. And when I was 17, I won the United States lightweight fighting title. And so I began traveling the world, competing on a national and international level, of course. And that opened up my world. So I got to get out of my little small town Bible Belt area and see that there are more, that I wasn't the only one. You know what I mean? There are more queer people out there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I do. I know how that feels. It was the same kind of transition when I left Dayton, Ohio to come to Minneapolis, which is like the third place in the country for most, LGBTQIA folks. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a big difference, right? It's a very lonely existence when you think you're the only one. And of course, there was no internet when I was growing up to find community.
Yeah, same. Yeah. I mean, I decided to come out when I first came to Minneapolis. So yeah, that's what prompted all of that. I was in a great place. So yeah, I was 20. So yeah. All right. Do you want to ask the next question there, Gender?
Sure. So how has your gender evolved some more over time? So you talked about kind of your high school age, but something has happened between that moment and now, where you're this fully manifested adult man with a fabulous hat and a big grin. So, what was it like? I mean, my guess is you've probably had testosterone because you're growing a fabulous beard.
Yeah.
What was it like figuring out HRT and any surgeries you may or may not have had, especially in the years that you were having those, if you feel comfortable sharing?
Sure. Well, let me back up just
Sure.
a little bit before that.
Yeah.
And say that I was then on the U.S. karate team. And So I had, after I started traveling and finding more queer people in the world, done some research, about transitioning and everything, but I knew how rare of an opportunity it was to be on a team like the US karate team.
Sure.
And I worked really hard for it.
Yeah, you did.
And I also knew that, I was in a contact sport because all my awards are in fighting and sparring. And so that's even more complicated. And they had no idea back then what to do with trans athletes. So I knew they would, if I had started medical transition, they would have not allowed me to compete. I happened to have really good genetics that I'm very grateful for as an athlete, whereas my body held up to that kind of high level training and competition for a long time. My body healed well. It just held up, under that well. And so the last time I competed in an international competition, I was 39 years old.
Wow.
So I started at 6. This is a long career, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thanks. And I won that was the world championships. And I won 2 medals in that. And I was the oldest one, male or female, on the team at the time. And there were 18 and 19-year-old kids on the team calling me the grandparent of the team at 39.
That's so funny.
I want to smack them a little bit, but
Yeah, right.
But
you'll be 39 someday.
Yeah, right. I won 2 medals, and I thought this is probably a good time to retire, right? Go out on top, right?
Go out on top. That's right.
Yeah.
Like if you win $3,000 at this casino, just leave. Yes.
And so I did. I retired, and then that also allowed me. They would still let me coach and referee. I'm an Olympic certified coach and referee, and I've coached 59 national karate champions, and that was fine. I could transition and do those things, but they wouldn't have allowed me to compete. So this freed me then to start exploring my journey of being my full authentic self. I did a lot of research as to where was the best place to go do that, because there weren't doctors where I was from in the South, in the Bible Belt little area, that were used to treating transgender folks. There weren't therapists that had, experience with this, and there wasn't community to talk to people that had been through the process. So I visited Seattle a few times, and you know how it is. If you visit Seattle in the summer, it will seduce you.
Yes, it will. Yeah,
I've never been.
It's perfect in the summer. It's 70 degrees, sunny, and the grass is still green because it rains the other 9 months of the year.
Yeah, and the mountain is out, and it's beautiful.
And the mountain is out, yeah.
The humidity is not so thick like where I'm from that you can cut it,
Exactly.
Wow. So I want to back up for a second. Did you say you were an Olympic coach?
Yes.
Whoa.
I'm an Olympic certified coach and referee. And so I coached, a bunch of national champions and 29 junior Olympic champions, which that's the youth up to 18 years old. But yeah, I love coaching. I love helping people achieve things they never thought they could.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Thank you for doing that work. Thank you so much. We need that kind of inspiration. Oh, are you ready to switch topics, Gender?
Yeah.
You want to do it?
I can. So Mac, your whole deal is you have a business that revolves around positive masculinity. I wonder, for those who are maybe less familiar with either gender theory or just feminism in general, would you be willing to define maybe positive masculinity and toxic masculinity for folks who've never heard of these phrases before?
Sure.
I think I just saw you grab a book. I'm excited.
Well, I'm looking at my book because the tagline really describes my definition of positive masculinity is a heart-led, growth-conscious, emotionally intelligent, and inclusive masculinity. So, I would say traditional masculinity. I do talk in the book about the difference between toxic and traditional masculinity. And I think it's important to define the difference, because somebody can have what we would call traditional values. And if they don't push those on somebody else or discriminate or judge other people if they don't have the same values, then it's not toxic per se, right?
Right.
Anything can become toxic if you try to force it on others.
Yes.
And then there are things that are just outright toxic behaviors that, for instance, rape culture, also thinking you have to put certain groups of other people down to make yourself feel like you're the man, women down and putting LGBTQ people down, things like that. That's toxic.
Yeah.
There's no way around that. It's toxic. What I get people to do in this work is to, go back and examine or re-examine now as a conscious adult, the way you were socialized and socially conditioned to think that you have to be walking the world as a man. And we've all had messaging and modeling around gender in our lives. And most of us, the thing of it is, we don't go back and re-examine all of that and decide what's serving me well and what is not. And what is not, get rid of it and replace it with something healthier.
That's right. I love that. I'm actually taking notes like a good student, which I just lost the sentence I was trying to write, but I figured it out. Anyway, let's see. Let's try the next question here. What made you write about masculinity? That's a really good question. I'd love to know that answer.
Well, I'm going to give you this is a very personal thing to me, because when I got to the place, after retirement and doing my research where I could go into beginning my medical transition, I had a little bit of a battle within myself about it. And I've also traveled the world teaching self-defense and empowering women all over the place. I've taught in women's shelters and women's prisons and all kinds of places. And, there was a little bit of a battle in me, and it being a top, what the world viewed as female athlete, I put up with a lot of sexism.
Yeah.
And so there was a part of me that was battling inside. Do I want to become a part of this group of people who've caused so much damage?
Oh, yeah. I visited that same thought too.
Yeah. And I heard my grandfather's voice. He had passed away, but I heard his voice in the back of my head when I was going through this, thinking about this. And my grandfather, one of the really wise teachings he gave me was, if you want to create change, most of the time, change happens from within. You can't stand outside of a group, point your finger at them and go, I hope they change, or I want them to change, or I can't stand how they are, Get in there and get involved to create change.
Yeah.
And so that, to me, his voice telling me that was my green light. Well, what we need is more good men and good masculine people standing up, speaking up, and doing the right thing.
Yes, I agree with that. I have a question for you. How old were you when you started your transition? Now that you were a coach and you were an Olympic coach, and for Junior Olympics and for Olympics, when did you start your transition?
I was 42. So I lived the first 42 years, the meaning of life, walking the experience of, walking the world as a woman business owner and, top in my field. And that experience has made me a better man. I'll tell you that, because it's wow. It's very enlightening.
Yeah. What was the pushing point, the tipping point for you? Besides research and moving to Seattle, what was the tipping point?
Just wanting to live in my full authenticity. I've always been masculine, and I just, was tired of not being able to live in my full authenticity. I think we all get to a point where you're tired of living your life for everyone else, or to please or make everyone else comfortable, right?
Yes, I began mine at 50 a couple of years ago.
That. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the tipping point too, was like, okay, it's a pandemic. What am I going to do about me? And how do I take care of myself? So it sounds like, we both transitioned as we were older. And so that's really exciting to hear. Yeah. Okay. All right. What's your question there, Gender?
Oh, so Mac, you mentioned teaching self-defense to women, and I actually used to teach a dancing class. It was called Ladies Take the Lead, which I now have plenty of feelings about the way I'd rendered that. But I taught people who, if they would show up to a regular, just standard default cishet dance class, they would be told you have to follow. So I was like, no, we're going to flip the gender script. Any of those people, I'm going to teach you how to lead. I'm going to teach you this more powerful position. The next step beyond that is gender neutral following, where you switch back and forth who's lead. And I also got into some of that later in my dance career. But yeah, I'm curious, for me, at least, it was so empowering to teach people how to use their voice and to have that creative autonomy, because as in dance, as the leading person, you kind of choose a lot of where you're going to be in space, what twirls or moves are you initiating, and then the other person has to say, yes, I'm going to do that, and then actually follow through. So it is a conversation, but there's this really interesting piece with that. And I wonder if you ran into any of that teaching self-defense to people who don't typically learn self-defense or don't feel like classes like that are available to them. Just, it was a powerful experience for me, and I wanted to share and also hear if you had anything else to share about that experience.
Yeah, I definitely did. I mean, I had also taught, of course, in some of those places when you're talking about women's shelters, some people that have been through abusive situations. And to be able to teach something that gives them some of their power back, where they feel like they can walk with some confidence after, going through something like that, and to watch the confidence grow in them as they learn, it's, it makes it all worth it. It's just a beautiful thing to see, and also it brings them more into their body, so they're more embodied, which a lot of times after people have been through abusive situations, that's hard for them too. So it's a healing thing as well.
Disassociate from your body after significant abuse. Yeah, I understand that. Oh, wow, this is wonderful. Okay, I'm looking through the questions. Okay, how can we begin to peel back the layers of gender, social conditioning, and socialization? It's a very light question.
Yeah, just easy, nothing.
Easy question. Easy question. Take your time. Take all day. No, we've got 2 hours. So anyway.
Yeah. This is not work for the faint at heart. That's what I would say. It's really introspective work, getting in deep to the modeling and messaging that helped form our belief systems. Because I think gender, the way we have been socialized around gender, is part of the very fabric of our society, the foundational thing. So it really shakes people a little bit to get them to go back and look at this and realize that a lot of the things they were taught, just aren't true. They just aren't, that it's all a construct.
It's all a construct. That's right. Wow. Because you're learning someone else's wounds that have been passed on to you. And so until you can learn to kind of process your own wounds, you walk in that shadow of this other person. And so it's like kind of going back to your authentic self by examining from the inside out. Is that what you would say this was?
Oh, definitely. And I think one of the scary things about it for a lot of people is when we're asking them to go back and take a deep dive into their socialization and social conditioning, they're having to go back and look at people that were models for them that they cared about, parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and coaches and teachers and people that, they loved and looked up to, right? And so sometimes that's difficult to look and have to recognize that those people weren't perfect. They had flaws. They didn't know everything, right?
Yeah.
And, as wonderful as my grandfather was, he was an amazing role model in my life in many ways. There are also some things that I
What are some of those ways?
Oh, well, he was a businessman. He believed, he was really, about teaching me about getting involved to help create change. He didn't sit back, and he believed in community. He was a city councilman. He was, he owned his own business, and he took me around with him. I was his little mini me, and taught me a lot about how to work. He could talk to anybody and tell a great story, so he was a lot of fun. And I was his little fishing buddy, and we'd solve, world problems in the John boat fishing.
Oh, wow. I love it. What do you miss most about your grandfather?
Oh, just his stories. He was just such an amazing storyteller. And he was the kind of storyteller that, like, if he talked about a guy sawing, he'd be doing the motion as he talked about it. He was like into it.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. Oh my goodness. Tinder, do you have some questions?
Oh, I have plenty of questions that I'm wrangling, but
okay.
I'm just trying to figure out the order to put them in because we have so many wonderful things to talk about. Is there anything else you would like to say, Mac, about how your martial arts background helped you navigate your gender journey? Do you feel complete on that? Or is there anything else you wanted to add?
I think there's so much to that. Like, so much of the work that I'm doing today, I can't even take the martial arts training I've had and experiences I've had out of any part of my life, because it's been such a integral part of my life, right? And helped form a lot of who I am. One of the things that I think it really helped me with in navigating my gender journey is understanding how to be centered. And when you're
Yeah.
You're going through, especially the first couple of years of HRT, of hormone replacement therapy, whew, you're going through another puberty, so it isn't so easy to be centered. So to have skills that that can help center you through that are helpful.
Yeah. Another puberty at 42 and 50. It's like, well, how can we skip this? Can we take a special pill and skip this too, or whatever?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I definitely think that helped. I also think that the other way it helped is you learn you're not somebody who follows the crowd or feels as pressured by peer pressure. There's something in the martial arts that teaches you to, to be your own person and to follow, to follow your heart. There's something that gives you the confidence to do that, I think, in the martial arts that is different.
Is it more like based around intuition versus instinct? Instinct feels like a reaction, but intuition feels like a response to your body that informs you like what to say or what to do next. What would you say there?
Yeah, I would definitely say it's intuition. Yeah. And the other thing is that I'm much more in tune with my body. Of course, as an athlete, I had to be embodied. And I'm not the average person in the trans community that hated my body.
Mm.
I had a lot of bad gender dysphoria. And the reason is because my body as an athlete gave me a lot of privilege. Right? It opened doors for me. It helped me be able to travel the world. I got to do all kinds of really great things because this is a fine-tuned machine that worked well for me, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah. I understand that a little bit for myself. Like, I didn't have like a lot of kind of like feeling bad about my body because I was like, well, I made it for 50 years and it's still working. And so, now I'm just like creating the body that I've always wanted with testosterone and surgeries. And so it's like, like the cake and then the cherry on top of the cake. And the cake is like having a healthy body to begin with. And then the cherry is being like, oh, I can like manipulate my body to exactly the way I want it to be. And so that feels more fulfilling to my heart. So yeah. Is that something you relate to?
I totally relate to that. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was much more in tune with, of course, my body going through, because when you're very embodied and you're used to being in tune with your body as an athlete and listening to your body, I was much more in tune with my body going through those changes. And that's also a reason why it was so important for me personally to, be in a place where I could have doctors that really knew what they're doing. Because I had a bajillion questions because I wanted to do this in the healthiest way possible.
Right. Yeah, I understand that. What was a question that you felt uncomfortable asking, but had to push through a wall to ask? And then what was the response when you got the answer? Was it a sense of relief or were there more questions?
Well, I think one question that it was uncomfortable for me to ask, and this was prior to having a hysterectomy, but, starting at 42, I asked my doctor, what happens when I go through, what happens with menopause when I get to the age where I'm going through menopause? How's that going to affect my hormone levels? And will we have to change the dosing of, HRT and all that? How will that? And what's so interesting is one of the things when you're a person who asks a lot of questions, especially to doctors in the trans and gender nonconforming communities, there's a whole lot of things that they just don't have the answers for because there hasn't been money for research. And you find out that we're kind of like guinea pigs right now in a lot of ways with some of this. Unfortunately, most of the money for medical research comes from old cis white men, and so they're not like investing a lot into trans medical research.
Yeah, I feel it'll be a different experience for someone who's 50 and 20 years from now versus 50 in 2020. Like it's part of the reason I'm making my film. And it's just like, like I had a lot of questions and it took me a couple of years to finally talk to my doctor about it. And part of it was like, I'm 50, can I even transition? And, what about menopause? And it was like, oh, the HRT will put you into menopause, will be done in 3 months. I was like, score, so it happened, it's done.
It's taking me more than 3 months, but yes.
Okay.
You do go through menopause when you start T. My hope is once my uterus is gone,
whoop-de-doo-dah,
it will speed the process up because I'm very tired of the hot flashes. I would like them to end, please.
Yes. I still get those from time to time too.
It's just like
whole body lights up like a Christmas tree.
So it's like Themopause.
put all
The
the
chat is
windows,
saying
turn off the ceiling.
themopause. Yeah. I'm grateful that I at least had top surgery first, because now I can just rip my shirt open. That's why I wear the snappy buttons, because it's just like, all right, too hot, cannot anymore. Less than 1 second
And
later.
the sound is always nice. Yeah, ripping
Yeah,
the
it's fun.
Yes.
I feel
have a
like
Dapper Boy shirt,
Superman.
Yes, I have a Dapper Boy shirt, so I have like a snap here and a snap there and a snap there, so it's kind of like unbutton, snap, unbutton, snap. So it's a
Yeah.
slow motion Incredible Hulk. But yes, I understand what you're talking about. Yeah,
Mine is much faster. It's wonderful. Yeah.
Please start
Anyways,
investing in
hot
those.
flashes. Hot flashes are a thing.
Not anymore. I'm so glad. Yeah.
I aspire.
Well, and I think that's one reason it's good for people further down in the gender journey to talk to those behind. Not only for those of us here, but also for people in chat who haven't even started tea or whatever. Like, you know, we need this community-based knowledge, because our, like, the bigger entities, right? Like the medical system in any country, but especially the United States at this time, like, isn't taking care of us the way that we need to be taken care of. So we have to do for ourselves what others are unwilling to do for us.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I will mention one other thing that came up medically that was interesting for me, and there's been now a decent amount of talk about this within the trans community, but not enough, is that after you're on T for a long time, you know, maybe I'm talking like 8 to 15 years, people have real problems with, and this actually happened to me, and I talked to a couple of other trans guys that have been on T for a long time. I started getting cramps again prior to hysterectomy. This is what really made me hurry up and go get the hysterectomy, was that I started getting cramps again, and mainly around arousal. So what happens is, because of being on T that long, your uterus and ovaries atrophy.
Yeah, they do.
And then when you are aroused, all that blood flow, extra blood flow, is trying to get through there, and it's atrophied so much it backs up, and it's hard to get through there, and it causes cramping. And I mean, I'm not talking a little cramping. I'm talking sometimes like you're grabbing your stomach and doubling over. Like,
Yeah.
Whoa.
it's pretty sharp pains.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I've been having that every weekend. And that's why we
it's-
switched my dose to twice a week on T. So I'm on 0.44 milligrams. So we cut it in half, and we did it twice as often. One, to manage the estrogen and keep it more level throughout the week. But that's absolutely a motivating factor for me to have the hysterectomy. It's like, no.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah. I ironically had my hysterectomy 5 years ago, just before Halloween, but I only had like my uterus taken out, so I still had the cervix and the ovaries, and I'm actually having a consultation in a couple of days where I get the rest of it out, because I'm having a phalloplasty at the end of the year. And so yeah, but it would have been, I think, a much more complicated experience had I kept everything. And so yeah.
So Trans Capybara, who is my wife, has a question in the Twitch chat. She's asking, post-estrogen for you, Mac, was there a further realization or unlocking a layer of masculinity that you would not have discovered otherwise? Like, did that removal of those organs shift any of your interior landscape additionally? I know mine has shifted multiple times on my gender journey. That's also our next question too, but anyways.
Lead in.
Yeah, I don't think it had shifted much, because I had been on T for quite a while. I think 10 years, almost 10 years, when I had my hysterectomy.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't think so. Maybe, I think the only thing I've found that have shifted is sleep patterns.
Oh, can you explain more about that, please?
Yeah,
If you're comfortable.
having like waking up more in the night. Like I don't know what that is, or if it has anything to do with that, or just, who knows? Yeah, but that has definitely been something that I've struggled with kind of since, I would say, it's been the last few years. I mean, since the pandemic, and, hysterectomy was about that during that time at the beginning of that. So.
Okay. So when you had your hysterectomy, then you started waking up in the middle of the night, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Having a little bit of a harder time getting back to sleep,
Yeah, I switched from gel to the shot about 4 weeks ago, and my body has dramatically changed. And my sleep, I get up at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, like just wake up. Even if I go to bed at 11, or if I go to bed at 9, or if I go to bed at midnight, I just pop up at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm ready to work. And I'm just like, I just would love to sleep in, but like my body's like, no, you must work now. And I'm like, okay, I guess just get my patootie out of bed and go to work. I don't know. Thank you. So yes.
Yes, sometimes our body has other ideas, right?
I mean, yeah, but I wish we could agree more. Like this is a relationship. We're supposed to talk to each other.
Like you need to call a meeting.
Zoom. I'd have a Zoom meeting with myself.
I love that. There is some knowledge from the plurality spheres that me and my friends are in at times. There are ways to talk to yourself, right? So you can journal
Yes.
back and forth with yourself. You can, some people will use a Discord server and maybe have use PluralKit to have different bots represent the different headmates or the different aspects of oneself. If you're like, here's me, here's my inner child, here's my inner sage, here's my whoever, and you can actually have those conversations with yourself either using a keyboard or a pen and paper. And I think that sort of introspection is really powerful.
Yeah, I tend to do that like if there was a camera on the wall aside from the camera I'm shooting with, I talk to myself all the time. And so like I go back and forth between my inner child and myself. Like when I'm upset about something, I'm like, ask my inner child, okay, what's really going on? You're upset, so what's really going on? It's like,
Yeah.
well, mom did this and I didn't like that. I'm like, mom's not here anymore, so let's work through it together.
Yeah.
And so it's like that self-parenting that I've literally had to do for most of my life. So I'm just gotten better at it since finishing therapy and stuff. So
That's amazing. Speaking of that, I'm writing 2 other books right now.
not just one, just 2.
Not right this minute, but yeah.
Okay.
Not during the podcast. You're not actively writing during the podcast.
I mean, that's massive multitasking. Congratulations.
But one of them is called Hey Little One, and it is, so I had a pretty tumultuous growing up. I talked about my grandparents, but I was back and forth between my mom and grandparents, and it was pretty tumultuous. And like I said, my mom had me at 16, but she was married 5 times by the time she was 25. And she's on her 12th marriage now, and I'm the oldest, so I got to help pick up all the pieces of the emotional fallout from all that. And so, during a lot of trauma that happened through all of that, no one ever checked in on my brother and I, because my mom deals with mental illness. It was always rushed to fix her crisis, and they didn't think to say, how are you kids doing? How is this sitting with you? How are you handling? Because we get moved around a lot, or she went away with a guy for a weekend, came back married, and moved him and his 2 kids in with us. I mean, just things like that would happen. It's like a whirlwind. You had no, and so
Wow.
so I started the Hey Little One is my grandparents have passed, and so I've written letters to my little self, checking in with my little self like I wish somebody would have done.
Yes.
Healing that inner child, right?
The inner child work is really massive.
Yeah. Because everybody always said to me, oh, you're strong and you're independent. You handle things in an amazing way. But I was a little kid. I shouldn't have had to be handling all that on my own, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like sometimes people just want to see the strong side, but they don't understand the vulnerability that's really underneath it. And it's very, the strong side is kind of thin compared to the amount of vulnerability that it's masking.
Yeah. And the weight that you're carrying while doing it. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a very healing thing. And I even wrote letters back and forth to my grandparents to say things I wished I would have said, or asked them questions I should have been able to ask,
That's wonderful work. That's wonderful work, Mac. Congratulations. That's awesome.
So, Mac, I have one more question before Trans Capybara is asking in the chat. For those of us raising masculine identified kids, what are points to keep in mind as a parent to guide those folks towards a positive masculinity model?
Yeah, I call it masculinities. I think one of the biggest things that we can teach our young people is there's not one way to be masculine or feminine or trans or genderqueer or whatever. There are many variations of that, right? One of the things that I teach, even, when I'm teaching cis folks about gender, is I get them to look at it as a spectrum like we do, most of us do with sexuality now,
Mhm.
trying to get people to understand gender as a spectrum as well. But even if I lined up, 100 cis men, right, there are very different ways they could be masculine. I mean, we have everybody from The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, the tough guy, right, to Mr. Rogers on another end that is very different. Those are very different forms of masculinity. They're masculinities. And we can do the same thing with femininity. There's not one way to be feminine. There are many ways to be. And so I think just letting the kids, know that it's a spectrum, and you be, nobody else should define your masculinity for you or femininity for you, is very freeing.
It seems to go back to embodiment.
Yeah, totally.
Wow.
Totally.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you for that. Masculinity, the business. Okay, tell us about your work as a gender educator and activist, please.
Well, I had been teaching martial arts for so long when I transitioned and came to Seattle and got involved in this community. I'm inducted in the Martial Arts Hall of Fame in two categories. One as a competitor, and the other one is a master teacher and coach. So with my experience teaching and coaching, not long after I transitioned and got into the community here, there were a few people who said to me, we need more people with your kind of background and being a public speaker and teacher to help explain this journey to people who don't understand. And I have been a public speaker forever, doing motivational type speaking as an athlete and that kind of thing. And so it wasn't difficult for me to transition that to teaching about gender. And also, I think one of the benefits of me growing up in that religious background, and my first degree is in religious studies, is I can also talk to the people who have objections to us being who we are, all of us in the queer alphabet soup of our community. I can talk to them, they can bring up religious objections to me, and I know that stuff. I know the history of it. I know, I can talk to them about it in a way that they can hopefully receive some things that open their minds and hearts.
Mac,
Okay.
my first 2 degrees are in religion.
Nice.
And when my wife first met me, she actually thought of you. And she told me recently that she kind of thinks of me being on a trajectory as like one day being someone who's like you, like just a very positive person, like open-hearted, loving, that sort of thing. And yeah, it's fun to hear you mention that. I've written papers about it. I've had countless discussions about it. It's powerful. I know for me, I wanted to study religion because I wanted to understand people better. I didn't want to find the one true religion, TM. I wanted to understand the multiple paradigms that people use to make sense out of the world so that I could connect with them better. And so it's cool to hear you mention that. I had no idea.
Yeah, one of the first things I ask people is who come from a religious background, is, do you think God makes mistakes?
Mm-hmm.
And then I just wait, let them sit with that, and of course they say, well, no, of course God doesn't make mistakes. And then I ask them if they understand what the word intersex means. And then usually I have to educate them about what that is, because most of them don't know. And then when you tell them that they've now discovered in science over 60 variations of of ways to be intersex, and that there are at least as many intersex people in the world as there are redheads, they go, what?
Wow.
God, if God had intended for gender to be just binary, there wouldn't be all of this in the middle, right?
Yeah.
That's creating a spectrum.
Yeah, you just leave them with steam coming out of their ears on that one, It's
Wow.
Yeah.
What is it like for you when you see the steam come out of their ears?
Oh, I love that.
Why do you love it?
I love that because they're thinking in ways they hadn't thought before.
Yeah.
That's why. Yeah, they're questioning their own. When any of us have a thing we think we know or believe, and somebody proposes new information to us, it might not be new in the world, but it's new to us, makes us rethink what we thought we knew. We all have that reaction, it's like, yeah.
So what I'm discovering is that you thoroughly enjoy and are nearly positively amused by being a catalyst for positive change. Like getting in there and just moving the rooms in their mind and expanding their thought process. Like you thoroughly enjoy this.
Yeah, it's one of my superpowers. I think it's my string, if you want to call it, or my calling. One of
Your
the things I mean,
vocation.
my martial arts students is, about looking at it. So I relate everything back to martial arts. It's just kind of my, been so much a part of my life, right? If you look at an attack coming in at you from one angle, a physical attack, I'm talking self-defense here. You look at a physical attack coming from one angle, you'll see certain openings. But if I shift my angle to a different perspective, you know, I'm going to see very different things.
Yes.
And so this is just a physical way for people they can visualize that happening, right?
Mhm.
Thing about our beliefs and things, if we are presented with different information,
Yeah.
it shifts our perspective, right?
Yes.
Different view.
Yes. I had that happen to me this morning. I was talking to my electrolysis and she helped me realize some things that I could actually do that would be more effective. And that was great, like for other people that are seeking electrolysis for bottom surgery. And I just came home completely shuttered and enjoying every second of it. I love it when someone helps me change my mind about things by expanding my knowledge. I just love that. I love it. That's why I love to talk with people, is just to get that expansion. I just love it. It does something to my DNA. Like it really does. It changes me and I love it. I love it.
I
Oh my
not only
goodness.
like doing that for other people, but I like doing it for myself. I talked about my teaching, but I'm a forever life student. I started reading books like The Course in Miracles and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross books on death and dying when I was 16 and 17. I was like trying to figure out the meaning of life, reading things, most 16 and 17-year-olds don't read self-help books.
Right. Right.
I
Yes.
was reading everything I could get my hands on about that. Leo Buscaglia, the love doctor. I read all of his stuff. I read a lot of these, because I was trying to figure out purpose. What are we here for? What's this whole existence about?
Yeah.
And I'm still very curious. And I think curiosity is, it's a key that keeps us young.
Yes, it is. It's the key to life. It really is. And, like I was reading self-help books and when I was 20, when nobody else was, and there was nobody in the book aisle of the self-help aisle. And now I'm trying to get like Atomic Habits from the library online, and I'm number 600 waiting for it,
It's a great book. I've read it. It's great.
I've listened to like an hour of it, but I need to get to the rest of the other 4 hours. But yes, I'm on the wait list. So yes.
I also read A Course in Miracles in high school.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. My mom was really into that. And what was it? The Celestine Prophecies. She was into that too. She was into all that new age self-help stuff. She was like teaching, she's been a guest on the show before. She was teaching Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way classes. Like she would facilitate these classes. And so I grew up with facilitators as parents. So running a show like this is second nature to me because it's like, oh yeah, of course. You just get people together and figure it out. And it's beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, your mom is awesome too. My goodness,
she's cool. She just did a tarot reading for 2023. Our last stream of 2022 was her doing a reading for the next year. So that's on YouTube if anyone wants to check it out. It's so fun. So Mac, you wrote a book. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, it's called Positive Masculinity Now. And it is out in Kindle and print right now on Amazon. And I'm in the studio recording the audio version right now. And we expect that to be out in March.
Oh, wonderful.
So great.
Congratulations. I'm going to get that from the library too.
I really am excited about the audio book going out because I know that there's so many people, that's the way they can intake the information better.
Me too.
That's me. I'm that person.
Yes. I can't even read a book now. I just love audiobooks so much. I mean, I read a book, but because I have to, but like I love audiobooks. I can just wash dishes and fold clothes and play with my cat. Be like, oh my gosh, I love that point you just made. Yes, it's like having a conversation where I don't talk for a change and someone just talks at me.
I get that. So yeah, about 5 years ago now, it's been almost 5 years now. I got this download, I call it from the universe, or some people vision or whatever. I've had these from time to time in my life, and it usually is telling me something big that I need to do. And it was during the height of the Me Too movement. It was, I was thinking a lot about the fact that all these people are talking about toxic masculinity and the patriarchy, right? That conversation was going on online all over the place, right? About how it had affected people. But there were very few men involved or masculine people involved in the conversation, with the exception of a few outliers that were fussing about the fact that the women talking about this, mainly women talking about this, were trying to take their masculinity away. So I thought, well, men need to be involved in this conversation. And number one, not only be involved in it, but number one, need to look at how has the patriarchy and toxic masculinity affected us as well.
Right.
It's hurt everyone.
Yeah. It's not a system of gains.
Right. Well, the Bell Hooks quote about the first victim of the patriarchy are little boys, and toxic masculinity are little boys, because it tells them to shut a whole part of themselves down, their emotional being, basically to shut down, right?
Yes, I had an experience with that. Yes.
Yeah. So my vision was, I envisioned all of these different types of masculine people coming together. And I kept seeing this like a movie playing in my head in a big room. I'm talking of all different ages, ethnic backgrounds, different life experiences, and unpacking how these things have affected us together in a supportive environment, but then working on helping to create a healthier model of masculinity going forward for all people.
That's right.
And so that's how I started this. And I called my good friend Drew Griffin, who Drew and I had been involved in PFLAG and activist work all over together. He's my activist spouse. And we had hung out. And when I ran for office in Seattle, he was my campaign manager. And we had a lot of fun together. And I also knew that Drew had personal experience with toxic masculinity like I had. Coming up as a female athlete, I had experienced a lot of that. Things like you could win 1 million championships and these guys will say things to you like, you're really good for a girl. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So if you're good, it doesn't. Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And I knew Drew had grown up with a toxic father, and Drew was like a Kinsey scale 6 gay guy who was, his dad, berated him all the time about the fact that he wasn't man enough. And so I called him and said, I've got this idea of starting a masculine and men's discussion group where we talk through these things and we work through them. Would you like to run this with me? I couldn't think of a better person to do this with. And he, after hearing the idea, he was like, hell yes, I'm in. And so we started Positive Masculinity monthly free discussion group. And anybody that identifies masculine can come to it. We've also had some moms that are single moms raising boys ask if they could come join. And the group unanimously said yes. We welcome them. Yeah, we've also had female therapists that treat clients that wanted, to learn some more tools to help them with masculinity issues, ask if they could come join in, and they have. And so I've been running this monthly discussion group for 4.5 years now.
Wow.
My good friend Drew has since passed away from cancer, and we're coming up this month on the 2nd anniversary of his death. And it was really kind of a bittersweet thing. Him and I started this book together. He passed and wasn't able to see it come fully together. So, I hope he's looking down, smiling that everything's carrying on.
I'm sure he is, and I'm sorry for your loss. I really am. I read about it online. Yeah.
Miss him every day. I mean, we had a lot of fun together, One of the things I loved about Drew is we both loved drag shows and football and baseball. I mean, we're these weird guys.
Not weird.
You just sound like queer guys.
We have
just
a lot
sound
of
like
fun,
queer guys.
Oh my goodness. What's your favorite memory of Drew?
Well, when we would go on road trips to do activist things, and like him and I were both, like I said, involved in PFLAG and some other things. We'd go on these road trips to do things. We would put Queen on in the car and sing to the top of our lungs with total abandon. Like we would just be belting it out. We were having karaoke,
That's what cars are for, to belt out the songs. If this is a shower thing or a car thing on a road trip, it's mandatory. Yes. Okay. No, if it's to Trader Joe's or, to Wisconsin or whatever, for whatever reason. Yes. Like definitely, that's what you do in the car with your friend.
Yeah, I miss how much, we were both major change makers, and that's our mission, like we both, but yet we had so much fun doing it together and would be silly and catty sometimes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Campy. And I mean, we had caftan parties together. We just silly stuff.
Wow. What a special relationship. I'm glad you were able to experience that.
Yeah, he was one of a kind.
Sounds like you both were. That's art.
Dedicated
That's
the book.
amazing.
Yeah, I dedicated the book to him and our friendship.
Oh, wonderful. Oh my goodness. Oh, I can't wait to get the audiobook. Let's see here. We said, tell us about your book, but here we are. How was your business? How has your business grown over time? And do you have a team that supports you? We talked a little bit about your interns and how you came
That was
across
before
that.
stream, so no one has heard that yet. So we're just going to pretend we didn't have that conversation and have
We
it
didn't
done
have
now.
that conversation at all. We never talked. We didn't. This is the first time we're talking this very second. Hi, everyone. This is Genderful, and I'm Atlas of Phoenix.
We keep
co-host,
having part of
Gender-
the interview before the show starts.
I mean, we're having so much fun.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
How lucky are we that we get to have this fun activity as part of our job? It's so great.
It's like an antidepressant. I love it.
Yeah, it totally is. It totally is.
Well, I think it was 4 years ago now, I was asked to be a part of this program with a company called Super Purposes that creates job programs and career coaching programs for folks. And they do certain ones for niche groups, like they did one for military spouses that get moved around every couple of years. They've done one for people that have been formerly incarcerated. And they wanted to do a specific job career program that was for trans and gender nonconforming folks to overcome the unique obstacles we face. And so they teach on these teaching videos, and you do them on your own time when you sign up for the program. Everything from how to build your LinkedIn profile, to how to interview well, to how to negotiate for more pay or vacation time and things like that. And so they need somebody when they do these niche programs that is from that community to help work with their team on what our obstacles are and come up with creative ways to overcome them. And they hired me as what they call their super shepherd for that program. So I'm on all the training videos and was a part of this amazing program, the first ever career program specifically for trans and genderqueer people in the world. And you can look that up at superpurposes.com. And part of my pay was to get interns for a couple of years. And so they have also a company called Super Interns, and they help folks that are either changing careers or they're in college and want to build their portfolio or get a little bit of experience, do a 200-hour internship. And so that was part of my deal. So I have over 40 interns that work for me at Positive Masculinity. And it's so refreshing. You know, a lot of them are young people in college, and when they read about our mission, they're so excited about it and so enthusiastic about it. They love it. And I've got, like a graphic design team, a communications team, a digital video team. I've got all these different teams of interns that are helping build the company, a web team. So, and they're
amazing. Congratulations. I just love young people. They're just so innovative. I just love it. Yes.
A lot of fun. And they keep me motivated because their excitement re-excites me about the work.
Yes. It's like a loop of infinity. Let's see here. Can you tell us more about your social media and YouTube content, which is a perfect segue?
Well, not long ago, I started a TikTok because some of the guys in masculinity, some of the younger guys said, you need to do a TikTok. So I did. And it's growing. I've been growing over 100 people a day.
Amazing.
Yeah, congratulations. I saw one of your TikToks with Brene Brown.
Oh, yeah. I love Brene Brown. Talk about her in the book a lot.
Okay. Yeah. Hard not to. Yeah.
Yeah. When you're talking about trying to help guys learn to be vulnerable and be in touch with their emotional being. Yeah.
That's a go-to. That's a go-to. Yeah.
Yeah. Vulnerability, mama.
Yes.
Yeah. And, I use social media to encourage. We have a whole social media team with these young people with their innovative ideas that are helping me, the old guy, pulling me along.
Nice. Oh my goodness. You're like the dinghy, right?
I need a millennial. Help.
Give me a Gen Zer and a millennial stat. Yes.
So they're very patient with me and walk me through how to do it. I mean, I think I learned pretty quick for an old dog, but
Yes, the patience is wonderful. I have a friend of mine who's about 28 and they want to take over my social media stuff too. And it's just like, they're like, you need to harvest a bunch of TikTok videos. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I got to do that. I was told, so I got to do it.
Yeah, well, my most humbling experience when you're talking about tech and stuff like that is is when my wife and I go visit our 2 granddaughters, and the 8-year-old wanted me to play Minecraft with her. And then after a little bit, she looks over at me and says, "Papa, you really need a tutor in this."
Why doesn't the 8-year-old tutor you in it?
Because she's too busy.
He's busy.
Taking my patootie there, I worked it in.
Maybe she can be a super intern or something. I don't know.
Super intern. Chief intern.
Chief intern to Papa. Yes. Oh, I love this next question. What are your thoughts about singing? Unless you have more to say about this before we go into this question. Sometimes I jump questions.
The social media stuff.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I want to say about the business and the social media is one of the things I'm just very proud of is that last June, the same month that my book came out, we launched blogs on our website. And if you go to positivemasculinitynow.org, there's a blog page on there, and we have different contributors write blogs, and we're always looking for new people that are interested in writing about subjects that have something to do with gender or masculinity. We've had people of all genders write blogs for us. And I think it's just such a great way for different perspectives to come into this conversation. And we have a whole how to submit a blog on there. So we're always looking for new contributors. And I think you'll find if you look through the blogs that have been published, there's quite a variety of topics we've covered. And, and we want to cover more.
Right. So, that's wonderful. Okay, I might submit something. I'm just saying I might. I don't know. Okay. And
so I saw this really cute video of you singing on socials last night. And frankly, Mac, I was in choir for 9 years. I love singing.
Yeah.
Singing is my heart. Like, I love it so much. And I've been on T, and now I don't know how to sing anymore. It's really strange as someone who was a first soprano, and like when I first started college, before I switched to religion as my major, I was going to be a music major. I wanted to sing professionally, but then I learned I couldn't play piano, even if I tried, and I can still play guitar, but piano, not very good at that. So, but you had this really sweet little video with you singing and talking about all of the health benefits of singing. And I wonder if you would be open to maybe sharing some of those health benefits, or even singing what those are, if you feel like a reprise performance for our podcast episode today.
Oh my goodness, please, because I just had my second singing lesson Saturday, and I'm so excited.
Cute, Alice, that's so cute.
It is cute because my voice is cracking, and I'm just trying to belt out scales. So yes, please share.
Well, I, like you, I grew up singing in choirs and, choruses, and I've even been in the Seattle Men's Chorus. And before starting T, I was already a lower second alto. So then what was funny is in the men's chorus, when I started on T, I was going down a section every concert series. I was moving to a new section going lower. And now I'm a baritone. So that's how that goes. But,
wow. I aspire.
Singing is one of those things. We have this in this amazing machine we were given to walk this ride of life in. We have this inner pharmacy in our brains.
Oh, wow.
And there are certain tricks and tips you can use. One of the things I've had as a professional athlete is a lot of sports psychologists work with us when you're on things like the U.S. karate team, and we learn these tips to lift ourselves up if we're feeling a little down, right? And lots of things can let off those happy chemicals in our inner pharmacy. Exercise can do that. Hugs can do that.
Oxytocin, yes.
There are consensual hugs, consensual touch can do that. Singing can do that. So it actually lets off all these happy chemicals. So you can be feeling a little down and then just sing a song. Make it simple to last your whole life long. Don't worry that it's not good enough for anyone else to hear. Just sing a song, la 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 la. You remember that from Sesame Street?
Yes, I do, vividly. Oh my goodness, jeez. Yeah, I was so happy after my singing lesson. I could have skipped all the way home, but it was a 20-minute drive, so I just took a lift. But yes, this is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And the thing of it is, you don't have to have a good singing voice. It still does this beautiful thing for you of letting off those chemicals and changing your mood.
Yes.
So, great
yes.
tool.
Wow. I'm reading something here. Okay.
No, don't worry about it. It's just a personal
okay.
aside. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to cover about singing before we move on to other things?
Well, I just think music is a magical tool altogether. Music is one of those things that you can even speak different languages and not be able to fully understand one another when you talk, but there's something about music that it brings everyone in the group together, even if you don't understand the meaning of the words you're saying, right? There's something about that brings unity, a collective experience.
Yeah, I really felt that
special.
way. It's very special. I feel that way about Prince and how when he passed away, the whole world from top to bottom turned purple that day. And, it was particularly hard hitting in Minneapolis. And we all went down to First Avenue and there were like 10,000 of us. And that was the first time I heard Lizzo. I didn't actually see Lizzo, but Lizzo sang Purple Rain for us outside of First Avenue. And then there was a dance party inside and we couldn't get in because it was just backed up like blocks. And so we just went and got something to eat. But, that was how we processed the night that he passed away. Like we heard about it in the morning, and then it was about 6 o'clock when we went down there, and it was just so many people. So yeah,
music also has the power to let our armor down, to bring our, you know what I mean? That's why they use it in church and things, because it lowers our armor.
Yes. I had recently made a comparison that neo soul is like goth music for people that love soul music, and that they're both kind of like sad genres. The difference between neo soul and goth is that neo soul is really like, it's heartbreaking, but there's like a little bit of hope at the end of each song, whereas like goth is like, I'm just gonna cry my heart out, I'm gonna break all these pictures of you, and I'm gonna fall in love with you on Friday. And it's just like, it's like, it's wonderful. Both of those genres mean so much to me. So
yeah, the other little interesting thing about music that some people know about me and some don't, due to my extreme martial arts background, I got to bodyguard for a lot of very famous musicians. And that was quite an interesting and amazing experience. And it was most of that work was prior to my transition. And at the time, I was collectively the highest ranking female martial artist in the world. And so that opened a lot of doors. So I got to work with Diana Ross and Amy Grant and the Mandrell sisters. And one of the things about, and Al Green, one of the things who was amazing, he's an awesome guy.
Yeah. But, he seems like it. Those love songs. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, my biggest problem with Al is that, sometimes he would get a little high. And back the day I was working with him, don't know if he's still doing that, but he would like walk right out into the crowd. We were doing an outdoor music festival, and he would walk down into the crowd without giving us a warning. And then of course your security team is going, you're all down there around him, like, what are you doing? You gotta give us a heads up, man.
Right. He's so full of love though. It's so amazing. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. It looks like we have a couple more questions. Did you have anything else to say about the question we just asked you? No? Okay. Okay. We're going to switch topics. Let me switch topics. How has your gender journey changed or influenced your sexuality and desire? The sex question. Yes.
Does your gender journey and your sexuality intersect? Yes, it does. They are separate things, but to me, they do intersect.
Yes.
And I would say my sexuality has changed a lot in the way I looked at things. Like I look at who I'm attracted to very differently than I did before, right?
Can you explain how you do that now?
Yeah, because actually a person's gender doesn't matter to me anymore.
That's what I discovered too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because to me, when you really think through, what is it that attracts me to a person? Well, it's not their plumbing.
Right. Right.
Because when you're attracted to somebody at first, you never usually see their plumbing unless you're at a nudist colony or something.
And even then,
or very specific parties.
Right.
Very specific parties. Yeah.
Yeah. But what I'm attracted to is a person's heart and mind and the way they treat other people, the way they walk in the world, their energy. And, so I just totally thought through that process of before, when I was very young, I dated a couple of guys because I grew up in that Bible Belt, thing, and it never really clicked for me. There was one guy I dated as a young person that I really felt a connection to, but I never felt another connection with a guy, and I dated women. And so the rest of the time, and so then now I consider myself pansexual or omnisexual. Yeah.
I claimed that this year too, or last year. Yeah. I was just like, are you interesting to talk to? Or are you full of love? How do you treat your friends and loved ones? How do you treat your pets, your plants? Like, how do you walk in the world? What's your energy like? And that means more to me. So yeah, I actually claimed omnisexual last year and pansexual. And now it's just, whatever.
Yeah.
I had to go through that too. That's interesting that you went through that as well. I wonder if age plays a role in that as well too, because we're both older people, and so I don't know if that plays a role, but I felt like it might have for me because I've dated a lot of different kinds of people, and then it would just boil down to like, what do we talk about and how do we talk about it? So that's kind of it.
Alice, I don't know. I'm 33, and since starting T, I went from being a lesbian to pansexual.
Oh wow.
And for me, it really does feel like it's related to the hormones in my brain.
Okay.
I mean, I married a trans woman, so my definition of lesbian expanded because she came with her default parts when I met her. She wasn't post-op, so I was like, do things, I don't know, and figured it out. It was fine. But like even then, it still was very much like only femme people is what I'm interested in. For whatever reason, that's where I was. But since switching to injectable T, my sexual orientation has absolutely changed.
Yeah.
It's so
even
wild.
different from gel to tea, from like gel to shot.
Yeah, that is when it happened. The gel didn't do that. Shots did within a month. I was like, oh, now I'm gay. All right. What's happening?
Right.
What are all these gay man dreams that I'm having? Interesting.
I
Curious.
never tried the gel. I started right away with the shots. And yeah, I definitely think I say, once you cross this gender rainbow bridge, and one of the things, Atlas, you mentioned age. I think the older, the more life experience, we have a lot to think back on about the BS we were fed around gender. I mean, you start thinking through that and you're going, well, that all,
Oh yeah, I was a preteen and teenager in the 80s, and the saving grace was Prince because he, didn't assign anything. He literally has a song that opens with, I'm not a man, I'm not a woman, I'm something you don't understand, and it's just like, oh my God, you're talking to me, and 1999 is such a quintessential album for queers in that era, because that's how we discovered we were queer, was listening to 1999, and then it was just like, oh, and then we just latched on and we never let go even after his death, and so yeah, that's pretty cool.
David Bowie's of the world, right?
David Bowie, yes, David Bowie, very much. Oh yeah, definitely. My mom was very happy to be like, David Bowie's bisexual. I was like, what's bisexual? That sounds cool, and so it was just like, like, I'm gonna be bisexual, whatever that is.
I'm gonna tell you, the first bisexual person who had a huge influence on me was I was a young, probably middle school, probably 6th grade, something around there. And I was at my grandparents' house at this time, and a primetime special came on. My grandmother was going to watch it, and so I watched it with her. And it was this lady that mesmerized me.
Ooh.
I couldn't take my eyes off her. I couldn't decide if I wanted to be her or do her. I wasn't sure which, but I just couldn't take my eyes off of her. And her name was Marlene Dietrich.
Oh my God.
Now.
Oh my God. Now you're talking to me. Yes.
If you don't know who Marlene Dietrich is, she's an icon in the queer community, and she was actually the first woman to kiss another woman on the big screen.
Oh, wow.
She was out as bisexual back then, when that wasn't, you just
nobody. She was Marlene Dietrich, right?
Marlene Dietrich, and basically she told him, I'm going to be me. I don't care what you all think.
That was her whole modus operandi. Yes, and her and Greta Garbo, because Greta Garbo was in a lesbian film called Christina, where she plays like an important like royalty who has a lover who's a woman. So yeah, I have that movie. So yes, oh my goodness, that's amazing.
Well, what stuck out to me about her in the world I was in was that she played with gender in a way that I hadn't seen before, except of course, Klinger on MASH was probably the only character I saw play with gender a little bit, outside the gender lines that I was growing up with, the strict gender lines. She did that too. I mean, she would come out one minute in a beautiful ballroom gown with her hair done just right and all her makeup on and be this leading lady, right? Then a few minutes later, she'd come out in a man's tux with tails and a top hat and a long cigarette, and
Right. Oh my goodness. I feel like,
yeah, it was fascinating.
it was so fascinating. I feel like for me, your Marlena Dietrich is my Tim Curry in Rocky Horror Picture Show, when I was just like, whatever, I just want this person, that's it. And I was like 5 or 6 or maybe 7 or whatever, and it was just like Rocky Horror Picture Show, like seeing Tim Curry like that, I was just like, oh, I just want to be like, whatever this is, I want this for myself. And then like I watched the movie 3 months ago and I was like, it's a trans tragedy, but it's one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen in my life. And I love that. So I love that film so much. And to be able to watch it outside of an audience and all the shenaniganery that goes on when you go to the theater, and to fully absorb the story, that it's so far ahead of its time, it's not ready to be remade yet. It's so far ahead of its time.
Totally. I mean, then we can talk about Yentl, and we can talk about of movies like that, Victor Victoria. Those were things that in my world were showing me there is some flexibility to these strict little boxes. Or maybe there's hope for me that I didn't have to be stuck in this box.
Well, it's interesting. My mother was always accusing me of being a lesbian while she was also introducing me to like lesbian, queer, gay things. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, you've kind of influenced me. So here I am, but at the same time, it's in my DNA. So, what are you going to do? Oh my goodness. Oh, do you have anything to add, Gender, to this conversation? I don't want to leave you out.
Oh, I don't have any stellar videos to throw into the wonderful name dropping that's happening. I do think both of your hats are really fabulous, though.
Thank you very much.
I think it's important to have representation like that to create the possibility dreams for people. Like what I'm gleaning from what you two are sharing is like having that kind of queer, trans, gender diverse representation makes space for people to realize that's possible. And that's honestly part of why I run this channel, is I want to be like trans in front of a camera on purpose. I'm transitioning in front of a camera on purpose. If you go look at the start of this channel, my very earliest VODs, it's before I started HRT. My voice is totally different. I still have the little butch haircut, but like, my voice is different. My face shape has changed a lot in the last 2.5 years. Like on HRT, like you heard me record my little journal thing at the start, and that's used to be weekly. Now it's monthly because the changes, it's not as much that's changing as fast as it was, but there's still a lot of these pieces that are going, and I basically wanted to make the media that I didn't feel like existed or didn't exist enough of. So that's why I have this podcast, is we need to tell our stories and be heard and document it so that like people can find it later and realize, wow, here's the show, like here's episode 74, the 74 trans people were interviewed on this show, what's happening? Like it's cool to have us telling our own stories instead of other people telling them, because sometimes the struggle we run into with shows like that is cis straight people are writing queer stories, sometimes, not always, and so they write those stories based on what they think trans people are like, instead of having actual trans people in the room making those editorial decisions, like, no, like this is what it's like. And I have a friend who's a filmmaker in LA, and we've had 1 or 2 Zoom calls where I've talked about, hey, here's some little scenes you could work into one of your shows or TV episodes or whatever, that's like documents these little moments of trans life that we don't see very often. I don't know if I've ever seen a trans person taking testosterone on the big screen, like either in like mass, like Netflix level distributed television, or like in a film where they're actively doing the injection on the set. Like, I don't think I've ever seen that. Why
You'll
not?
see it at Beautiful Boy, because I actually
will.
video recorded that, my first shot on camera. So you'll see it. Yeah.
So yeah, I think documenting those little moments in our lives, and like there's so many little trans jokes. Like my wife and I are both trans, so we make all kinds of jokes with each other all the time that like some people just don't understand, but there needs to be more trans comedy. Like, so our media representation is tragedy and trauma, and it's like, but we're really funny. Look at this episode. We've been giggling this whole time. Like, we're hilarious people. And so
I wanted to do like a commercial about something that happened to me. Like, I had like a pride party and I had a bunch of chocolate and I kept eating the chocolate. And I went to get a piece of chocolate. I just started transitioning. I just started my HRT. And I was like, went to get the chocolate. I was like, where are my midnight Milky Ways? Where are my midnight Milky Ways? And I literally thought, the maintenance guy came in and took the chocolate when I wasn't home. And then I thought, no, Jason wouldn't do that. He's a nice guy. But what if somebody broke in and took all your chocolate? And so I was walking around the house. I was like, where's the chocolate? Now I'm 50 at this time. And I'm thinking, oh my God, you slowly ate all the chocolate all week long. You're having a senior moment and you're transitioning and you have a second puberty. What the hell's happening here? And so I wanted to make that a little commercial for a Beautiful Boy. I just never got around to it. But that was senior moment thing, chocolate, all of this stuff happening at once about a month after taking tea. And so, we need more of those moments on film to show people, and that's the thing. Like when I was your age, we didn't have as much queer cinema and I was so hungry for it. I was running to the theater and secretly going into the video store and getting the VHS tapes and going home. And now I'm in all these queer film festivals that I'm submitting to, and there's like thousands upon thousands of films that are being sent into these film festivals, which didn't exist a long time ago, or maybe they did, but they didn't have this much of an influx. So it just warms my heart that there's just more and more being made, and I'm just so greedy for it all. I just want to absorb it all.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Yeah. Let's see. We have one more question, a few more questions.
We have like 5 more questions.
Yeah.
And we have 8 minutes for all of them because I don't want to keep Mac on forever. I know Mac's got to do dinner.
We love you, but we can't keep you forever. Okay. What strategies do you recommend to overcome body dysphoria?
I really am working on developing a workshop around this because I believe the best way to transition in a healthy way is to be in our body, right? Appreciate our body. I try to get people to think of the things they're grateful for in their body. My body allows me to get where I want to go, right? Just think about what you can be grateful for. I know you mentioned you saw one of my videos on gratitude, and it's all the things that, even though there are things you want to change about your body, and all of us have things we want to change about our bodies, right?
Yeah.
But we also have probably a lot we can be grateful for.
Yes. Yeah. I remember before top surgery, I did a little video and I was like, paying homage to people that have breast cancer and they have to have the surgery for top surgery. And then me making the elective choice because I also have gender dysphoria. But, I had a sweet rack. I'm not going to lie. And it was just, I was like, these, got me opportunities for things that, I'm not ashamed of. And my body was in great shape too. So I'm just like, I had a sweet rack. I'm not like going to hate on these things, but yeah, if you need help with that course, let me know.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I try to remind people is that each cell in our body has its own intelligence. And so whatever messages we're sending those cells in our body, I mean, I don't know if you've ever read the book by Dr. I'm trying to remember his name. It's about the water crystals and how it influences the shape of the water crystals when
the person that did the What the Bleep Do We Know film.
Yes. Yeah. So if we're sending negative messages to our body, I'm just saying to this that, it's not good for our overall health. So that's why I try to get people to focus on sending messages to your body, even though there's things you want to change that you have gratitude, for, and that sends your body like positives, and then as you're going through those changes, keep being grateful and letting your body know you're grateful for the changes that are happening too, and I just try to remember that every little cell has intelligence, and I want that cell to be getting good, happy messages so it keeps you healthy. Right.
Yes. Good self-talk, good self-body talk. What do you wish someone had prepared you before you started your medical transition?
Wow.
Just another light question.
I talk about this actually quite a bit. There's definitely some things I wish someone would have given me a little heads up about.
Okay.
Like, I'm somebody who's traveled the world teaching self-defense to empower people. And the first time me walking down the street looking like I do now in the evening, and a woman walking by herself crossed the street because she didn't know if I was safe, that hit me like a ton of bricks. It just hurt my heart.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I know that she doesn't know my history and my background and my story. And I also know that the biggest predator to women is men, because I've read all the statistics. I teach self-defense, but it's still hard to take that.
Yeah.
And I would say the other thing is I've taught children my whole life, something you do in the martial arts, right? You teach children.
Mm.
I love children, and I have 6 nieces. I'm a happy trunkle.
Nice.
I'm not an uncle,
Nice.
but
Trunkle. I love that. I love that.
gay guys say they're gunkles, so we're trunkles. Yeah.
I love it. I love that so much.
So I love kids, and that's the other thing, especially as a guy now with silver hair. I used to be able to interact with a little kid in public anytime and be silly with them. I've also graduated from clown school, so there's a clown in me. There's a silly part,
Totally.
and I love to play and interact. And I would do this at restaurants, or if I'm standing in the grocery store line and there's a kid in the cart in front of me, I'm always playing around with the little kid. Well, when you present female, you can get away with that.
Right.
What I am very keen to watch for now is if the mother or grandmother, whoever's with the child, starts looking at me like, are you a creepy old guy? Because their immediate, a lot of times, thought is that.
Yeah.
And it's fine if my wife is with me or a female friend is with me. You don't get the same looks. But, I didn't even think about that beforehand, and how I would automatically just be perceived as I could possibly be this creepy old guy.
I have to watch out for that too, as someone who's African American, to be very careful about my engagement looking like this. And so, it's a different kind of thing than being a Black woman to being a Black man or being Black trans mask.
Totally.
Yeah.
And those are hard to take. They're hard to swallow, right?
Yeah. My goodness.
And the other thing, I've definitely noticed the difference in sexism. Like before, now I walk into a restaurant and I'm looked at as a middle-aged businessman, and I have watched the hostess or host, whichever it is, walk directly past a woman that's been there waiting longer than me to me and ask me if I'm ready to be seated.
Oh,
Do you
that happens. That
redirect?
weirdness.
Of course I redirect.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
experience, I notice
What
it.
about her? Yeah.
What's so interesting
She
about
was
it?
here first.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I say. And the woman will usually look at me like, what planet are you from? Because most guys, it's not even on their radar. They just don't even realize.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I get sirred, and that's how patootie became a thing, because I was talking about getting in lifts, and people just, oh yes, sir. Where would you want to go, sir? And oh, women, they're just blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, stop kissing my patootie. I can't tip you because I'm poor. So let's just go. And so but I noticed that too. And it's so uncomfortable, because I'm just like, if you only knew,
right.
I don't know if you would attack me, or if you would just if you would just straight up stonewall me in the car. You know what I mean? So it's like being in that car and feeling like really unsafe, even though they're trying to be like, oh, sir. And I'm just like, oh, this is so gross. It was gross before, but now it just feels like a different kind of level of gross.
Right. Yeah. It's underlying stuff that a lot of people, it's unconscious bias that a lot of people don't even realize they have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness. We could talk forever about that. Concluding questions. Here we go. Is there anything we missed about positive masculinity that you would like to make sure you see?
Well, we, have all kinds of events. Some of them are co-ed, and some of them are for masculine identifying people only. One of the things I'm really proud of is that we last year hosted an event called How to Support Women in the Workplace. And it was directed at, teaching men how to be an ally and supportive of women in the workplace. I created a panel of 4 top business women, and, we let them explain their experiences first and how they're treated in the corporate world and what they really need from us to be an ally. One of the things I tell people all the time is, same thing, for us as trans people, don't assume you know what another group of people needs. When you're trying to be an ally to them, ask them, because, I don't want cis people assuming how I need to be supported. I'd rather them ask, right?
Right. Well, that's the whole thing about consent, isn't it?
Yeah.
Respecting sovereignty and autonomy, and respecting my use of my own particular agency, so please ask me, yes.
We all don't need support in the same way. Right.
No, the 3 of us need support in 3 different ways.
Yeah. Mac, I'm curious if any of those 4 top business women are trans women.
They were not trans women. No, they were not.
That's a growing edge opportunity. My wife is a software engineer. She's been at the same company for 15 years or something. She got maybe somewhere between 4 and 7 promotions before she started transitioning. She's gotten 0 promotions since transitioning 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So that shows you
it's
the exact same person with the exact same capabilities, different gender, stop getting promotions. So it's stark. It's shocking. And she's been on their like women in tech, like conversation lecture stuff. So, just throwing it out there.
Next time we do it, we will definitely have a trans woman or two on the panel for sure.
You could ask her. You know her. You could ask her if you want to. I'm sure she'd be delighted to participate. But yeah, it's interesting to think about that, because the trans feminine perspective is also different from the cis femme perspective, because there is that gender history component that comes in and plays this really interesting role. Because also, just like we were discussing what it's like maybe being socialized female and then missing out on some of the masculine socialization, trans women have the same in the reverse. And so it's like, what works for cis women maybe isn't going to work the same way for trans women. So having those people at the table is important too. It's cool to talk about it though. Yeah.
I just love this conversation today. Can you share an experience with gender euphoria besides the hat and the lovely shirt and the purple suit? What about besides those things?
I love, feeling good in a well-fitted suit. There's something about that just feels so good whenever I go get a new suit and put it on get it tailored to where it fits just right. That to me is a gender euphoria experience.
Well, you look so sharp in that purple suit. Oh my goodness. It's on Instagram, everybody. It's the first picture. It's a New Year's picture. Please go absorb all of that handsomeness. Please. Thank you. Do me a favor.
And I would say probably the other, the happiest day of my journey was my legal name change. There's just nothing, I don't think, to me that stood out as just the quintessential, I have finally gotten here. Because, there's something about, when you have to hear that old legal name that just doesn't fit you and represent you. It comes up, when you're dealing with insurance or when you're dealing with any type of thing, it comes up. And so to get that all legally changed was just like, and here's the interesting, funny thing about that. I did it here in court in Seattle, and the judge was just wonderful. I will have to say, the judge here, she was just amazing. And
so was my judge. Yes. Oh my goodness. The older cis white guy, and he was wonderful. Yes.
Yeah.
He was smiling the entire time. He was so excited.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Wow. Oh my goodness. I just recently got dead named for a rental application. They rejected the application, but they said, "Dear, my dead name." And I said, thank you for your response. Also, you dead named me, and I'll be sharing this information. And about a week later, it was yesterday, I got an email that said, "Oh my God, we looked up dead naming. We didn't know what it meant. We were really sorry, blah, 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 blah." And I was just like, it was so weird. And then it offset me for the whole day, and I couldn't understand why. Then I felt melodramatic about it. Then I felt bad for feeling melodramatic. And so I reached out to my community, and they were like, "That sucks." And so that was the first time I'd ever been dead named. And so oh my goodness. Yeah, that was a gender uneuphoria day. If that's a word, we'll make it a word today. Yes.
Gender dysphoric.
I read an article, a few years back for the Huffington Post called "Being a Trans Ninja." And one of the funny
oh my goodness.
One of the funny things, now looking like this, you can walk in, and I've walked into conversations with people where they had no idea I was trans, right? And you'll hear them talking about things about trans people sometimes. So you're like this trans ninja, and they don't realize they're talking about all this in front of you, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Things happen like my old name was on an account with Best Buy where I had bought sound equipment for my surround sound before. And I went in there after the name change and after transitioning and everything, and they are looking up my history, and they said, "Well, who is this? And, this account is under this name." And I said, this is really funny because this was my quick on the spot comedy way to handle this. I said, "That's my ex-wife. Can you take that woman off of there, please?" And they didn't blink an eye. "Oh, we're so sorry, sir." They just took her off, and it was my old dead name.
Now I've got a tool. Thank you. Thank you for that tip.
So We have one final question for you, Mac.
Sorry, go ahead.
What would you like to make sure folks know about your perspective on gender and non-binary or trans issues? Like if you have a 30-second like soapbox moment, what would you want to make sure you say to people?
Find supportive community and, keep that as your inner circle, because we face a lot of tough things. It's not easy to be in a group of people where we turn on the news every day and find out somebody's trying to make a law against us somewhere doing something basic, right? So I think it's really important to have that inner circle of support that we can go to and get fed and get lifted up, especially if you're out there trying to make change in the world, because sometimes it's exhausting. So that inner supportive circle is really important to have.
Yeah, it is. Oh my goodness. That's beautiful, beautiful. I just want to thank you so much for all the work that you've done in our community across the country and the world. I'm so moved by all of this. And I just had such a wonderful time with you today. I just wanted to make sure I got that in there before we did the cross promos and all that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I've had a great time with both of you. I'd love to hang out. We have to grab a beer sometimes or whatever.
Oh yes, we can do virtual beer. That's fine. I'll probably have wine because I'm fancy, but yes.
I'll have herbal tea because I don't drink.
Okay.
We can have coffee or whatever.
Beverage Zoom, yes.
I'll be very butch with my herbal tea. It's okay. I'll just exude positive masculinity.
I mean, masculinity is a spectrum. We've learned that today. So you can have butch tea and I'll have my, mask, whatever wine, and we'll be fine. Yes. We'll be masculine and drink.
It'll be so good. Thank you so much, Mac, for being on the show. Y'all, Mac Scotty McGregor is an author, activist, teacher, master martial artist, and the founder of Positive Masculinity. You can find out more at positivemasculinitynow. Mac is also on Instagram. Positive Masculinity Now is the handle there. We'll have some resources linked in the VOD later, so if you want to check us out on YouTube or podcasting platforms, it'll be there for you. Here is this week's Clouder Query. So this is where you, the audience, get to answer a question. Your Clouder Query is, what are some examples of positive masculinity that you have practiced or seen other people practice in your life? So next week's guest is Denari Grace, she, they pronouns, and we're going to be discussing intersectional social justice, a few community updates. Our Clouder Contributor Appreciation Day is coming up this Thursday, January 12th. The Discord movie event, we have our monthly event. So speaking of community to be involved in, our monthly movie event is coming up in the Discord server on January 15th. It's going to be The Road to El Dorado and the very first Tinkerbell movie. And just as a personal aside, I'm going to be away from my hysterectomy, as I mentioned, starting Wednesday, January 11th. So you're going to have a guest streamer from that Wednesday night and the whole following entire next week. And I'll be back with Genderful on January 23rd. Thank you all for being here. Trans rights are human rights. That's right. Genderful would like to thank our guest for being on this podcast. If you'd like to catch us live, join us on Mondays at twitch.tv/GenderMeowster. Show notes will appear in the edited version of the show on Fridays on both YouTube and podcasting platforms.
If you have a question you would like the host to answer, or are gender diverse and would like to request an interview, please send an email to genderfulpodcast@gmail.com or sign up via the website at genderfulpodcast.com.
As a gender diverse community, the Clouder wants to assure our listeners that we are prepared to moderate our spaces. We will get positive and negative feedback on these shows and topics, and we have a moderation team on our channels, socials, and Discord server ready to deal with this.
Please join our Discord server at discord.gg/Meowster to meet the community and get a regular digest of solidarity resources. You can also support us with subscriptions on Patreon, following and reviewing us on your favorite podcasting platform, or engaging with our posts and content on social media at GenderfulPod and GenderMeowster.
If you could take a few moments to also rate the show, we will post any 5-star reviews on our socials, so get creative. Mention a special interest of your own, a project you're working on, or even say hi to your comfort person in your review. What power!
This show is made possible by volunteers, tips, and subscriptions. Shout out to those helping us coordinate guests, edit the podcast, moderate the live chat, and post on our socials.
Artist credit for Genderful. Genderful's theme song is called Hope by Free Range Megs, aka Soma. The GenderMeowster logo was designed by That's Barnaby and edited with consent by Transgriffin. Genderful's pre-show is wrangled by JuiceTex. Genderful is edited and mixed by Transgriffin and Alexis Fandom. Genderful's social media is managed by Queer to Help. Genderful is hosted by Atlas O Phoenix and GenderMeowster. Genderful is the intellectual property of GenderMeowster. All rights reserved. Trans rights are human rights.
That's right.